talk about fear of God today. How about that? So, fear of God. It has been a mainstay in fashion since it was ceremoniously elevated to high street status once the grunge aesthetic was in full swing. But the past 10 years have changed significantly, and fear of God with it. Even the Fear of God Athletics collection under Adidas was a supposed letdown from even the faithful, leaving some to believe that the time is ticking on the collaboration, which begs the question, has the fashion community lost faith in fear of God? I'm your boy Reggie Casual, and we explore that question next. Let's get it. In a Substack post by co-founder of Snobette, Lois Sakani, stated that no official announcement yet, but word on the street is that Adidas will not renew its contract with Jerry Lorenzo and Fear of God Athletics when it comes to an end this year. The brand did not comment to my request to confirm. The brand is currently in the midst of queuing up Fear of God Athletics Drop 4, which will be among the final launches for the brand. Now, this may be a load of BS, or it may be plausible, but it's clear Adidas is not happy with the performance with Fear of God Athletics, and any releases are a result of contractual obligation. Now, this is a far cry from the claim that Fog Athletics can be Jordan Big that was made by Jerry before its release, and while I appreciate the confidence, the simple fact of the matter is Fog Athletics just didn't hit the mark. Users and fans chimed in with remarks like, I love Fog, but they kind of been spamming the same move over and over again. Love their tan gray color palette, but I miss the colors. I miss the edge of punk street vibes it used to have. It's become very formal, and Essentials has just become too simple. Or comments like, while I admire Jerry's work, taking his time to create art that you can essentially wear, his Achilles heel has always been time. Even Jerry said in an article that he doesn't work on a timeline or seasons and focuses on story. But in today's world, people work on timelines, schedules, and due dates. Brands can't wait for the story when they got customers waiting on product. Now, while I'm not so sure about the wearable art opinion and all that, I do certainly agree with time when it comes to Jerry Lorenzo. And part of the reason this is a problem is because with all the time his offerings upon release rarely seem to merit said time it takes to release these products. Now, a lot of this has to do with Jerry's notorious attention to detail and the finer points, which has been a hallmark of his design process since the beginning, so there's no surprise there. But in a fashion world where trends live and die, by the time this very episode ends, time simply isn't a luxury Jerry can afford. And certainly his fans can't afford it either. Particularly when so many are viewing Jerry's designs as a one-trick pony affair that requires you to know the inner workings of Jerry's mind and designs to appreciate them fully. A part of the reason this is an issue is because Fear of God enjoyed an incredible run even post-rebranding and benefited from the COVID years as the it brand. Due to Essentials and its loungewear meets style vibe, it's so deftly weaved into the world of fashion. Now, Adidas saw Fog Athletics as a boon, but had they had their ear to the street, they would have known that the label that they were trying to do, in particular after the end of the relationship with the man who shall not be named on this channel henceforth, was basically an untimely dud waiting to happen. Not because the collection was necessarily going to be bad, but consumers knew exactly why the move was made and nearly predicted exactly what the collection was going to be and look like. And when the price went nutso and was buttressed by a runway show, even the Fear of God faithful were fearful of a less than accessible release. They were unfortunately not disappointed with their prediction, meaning they predicted it right. A myriad of content creators looked to review the label objectively, but immediately recognized that the Fog wave was ending, and even the footwear was met with less than stellar praise, coupled at the time when the traditional sneaker market was beginning to lose steam and New Balance had already established itself as the fastest growing sneaker label on the planet. Jerry, in the meantime, it seems, was still trying to perfect that 750 silhouette that he did way back when, because he's literally done it like 3 or 4 times now. Hell, I think it's 5, but seriously, he's done the same silhouette like 5 times. I'm not hating, but this is exactly the nuance I'm talking about. Jerry seems to be that fashion student who is like never satisfied with their work, but he actually made it big. Now, most designers build on top of their foundation and expand using techniques employed before, but with a different approach and/or inspiration. For Jerry in Fear of God, it seems, he's still to this day refining and tweaking what his work actually is, what his process is, what his position is, and honestly, what makes him special as a designer. To be fair, we all know his aesthetic. But does he trust it enough to expand beyond the trappings that have clearly been established already? And frankly, many of his fans want to see color, they want to see pattern and more personality. Many of his naysayers are just done. And many super involved fashion aficionados know where to get the stuff that's simply more interesting beyond fog. And that's not a knock on Jerry, it's simply an observation why the question, has fashion lost faith in Fear of God, is so pertinent, because it illustrates that as prominent as Lorenzo has been with Fear of God, it's in danger of becoming only Fear of God essentials. And I'm not sure that's what Jerry wants. Thing is, we all took Jerry Lorenzo seriously. Pretty much all of us. We all did. We gave him the benefit of the doubt. We gave him credit for reestablishing an aesthetic that defined an entire generation, particularly within the confines of US fashion. But it's very much because we took him seriously that many of us are disappointed with the trajectory. As a marketing and strategy guy myself, who also sees the power of consistency, I actually sympathize with Fear of God. Because if we're being honest, particularly when it comes to how the mainline and sublines are presented, Fear of God operates similarly to a Japanese label, which you know I have a certain leaning towards. It has this uncompromisingly consistent, incredibly nuanced, and focused on silhouette and material over stylistic, trend-driven overtures. But the one thing Japanese labels enjoy is a populace that is far more patient and cares far more about that nuance. And that is not shade thrown at my brothers and sisters in the US. Seriously, I know you guys like some nuance yourselves, but it's clear the US is by and far the most trend-driven place on earth. We all know this. It's baked into the culture to be on to the next thing as soon as humanly possible. So Fog, Fear of God, working in that space of nuance and detail is at an extreme disadvantage when compared to a slower paced market like Japan. But even so, Japanese labels also release on time, despite being some of the most technically nuanced labels on the planet. So how is it that Jerry can't work out a consistent schedule, but Yohji, Kawakubo, Watanabe, Abe, Yasuhiro, Takahashi can? And I would argue that they are objectively better designers than Lorenzo. Perhaps not as universally popular, but certainly better technically. Again, not a knock on Jerry, but come on. Come on. But why is this? Why? Because these Japanese designers that I mentioned, they understand their formula. Kawakubo trusts her process. Jun trusts his process. Watanabe trusts his process. Yohji, Satoshi Kondo, all of them, they trust their process. Jerry Lorenzo clearly has a defined aesthetic, but again, time shows a distrust in process that is starting to show itself even for the most ardent consumers. So has fashion lost faith in Fear of God? In many ways, yes, at least from a purely exposure and time point of view. Have fans lost faith? Not necessarily, because they're still clamoring for stuff that should be made, that hasn't been made, but they remain hopeful. They remain hopeful. They have faith. All puns intended. The fact of the matter is, the brand is becoming increasingly ill-suited for an industry and audience that is constantly looking for the next best thing. Does that mean that Fear of God will fall off? No. Not necessarily. The Fog Essentials label was a great business move that will keep the brand moving for years to come, but Fear of God mainline and the Jerry aesthetic has clearly outlived its welcome in the current industry market, but not amongst fans. And if Jerry continues to release collections that are no more ambitious than the last in that market, I fear that Fear of God fans will become a bit more agnostic when it comes to praising its arrival when it actually arrives. But That's my take. An op-ed, if you will. I'm interested in hearing your take on the matter. Agree, disagree, let it be known in the comments. Join us on YouTube or Patreon for benefits and extras if you can. It helps us keep this thing going. It helps you get even more of these op-eds or, discussions we like to talk about. And also bigger reviews, insights, and places to go. I mean, if you can. But at the very least, drop a sub, like, turn on notifications if you found this content valuable or entertaining to you. But most importantly, keep it locked right here for all of your info in international fashion, culture, and business from Tokyo. It's your boy, and keep it casual. Yoroshiku onegai shimasu. And I'll see you guys in a minute.